this morning here at Monroe County Republican headquarters. I'm very glad to have all of our friends from the media and folks from our committees and some of our operatives stopping in. We're very glad to have you. We have a special guest with us this morning. We are always thrilled to have our great New York State GOP Chairman Nick Langworthy to join us. And today he is here to talk with us, as he does every time. It's something that's relevant to not just our state, but to our county and to our community here at home. We are so proud to have this great chairman thumping the Republican voice, making sure that our voices are heard as committee members and as residents of this great state. Ladies and gentlemen, our awesome New York State chairman. I am here, by the way, first of all, before I introduce you, I want to make sure that everyone knows that our county chairman, Mr. Bernie Iacovangelo, is on his way. He just wanted to make sure that we honored your time and made sure that we started this on time. So, without further ado, our great New York State chairman, Mr. Nick Langworthy, everyone. Thank you, Chairman, for coming.
Also, great to be joined here by Assemblyman Josh Jensen. In his freshman term, he's doing a tremendous job for this community. We're going to have him say a few words here when I conclude my remarks. We're standing here in a city that has one of the highest crime rates in the United States of America. The chance of becoming a victim of either a violent or a property crime here is 1 in 24. There have been 35 homicides already this year. The city's on pace to see 70 murders in 2021. This would mean that the city would have a higher per capita murder rate in violence than Chicago, one of the most notoriously dangerous cities in America. You can't turn on the news without seeing another story of a family being ripped apart or a young person's life stolen far too soon. It's a scourge that's not unique to Rochester. It's happening all across New York. And it's not just cities that are experiencing these spikes in crime. It's communities large and communities small. There's no mystery as to how we got here. It's downright infuriating to watch dishonest politicians like Andrew Cuomo, who's chief among them all, lie to New Yorkers about why our state has devolved into this state of lawlessness. For more than 2 years, I and other members of the Republican Party and law enforcement community have been sounding the alarm on Democrats' dismantling of New York State's criminal justice system. What started as a simmer is now a 4-alarm fire. And it's precisely what we said would happen. The public safety crisis we are facing is the direct result of Democrat policies that have focused on handcuffing police and letting the criminals run free. And what do you know? The criminals have taken advantage of a system and the newfound freedoms and all their allies that are in power. The elimination of bail has had horrific consequences on the lives of everyday New Yorkers. Every criminal in New York now knows that they have free rein on our streets, and they'll walk right out the front door of the police station with a desk appearance ticket and that they have no intention of ever showing up for. Our law enforcement has been villainized. Police budgets have been gutted. They took $1 billion out of the NYPD budget. What message to the men and women wearing that uniform as to what the people in power think of them and their families and the sacrifice they make? Policies like our brave heroes, they're retiring at record numbers. The retirements of experienced law enforcement officers is off the charts. And policies like 50A and the elimination of qualified immunity has had a chilling effect on proactive policing. Men and women who put their lives on the line to serve this community, they're at risk of personally losing everything under this new system of politicized policing. And radical leftists like George Soros, they're funneling millions of dollars into electing district attorneys who share his dangerous socialist ideology. It happened right here in Monroe County, where thankfully Sandra Dorley and the people of Monroe County said, no, we're not going to knuckle under to this. They elected a law and order district attorney, and she beat back all his dirty money that came in, and she beat a pro-criminal candidate for district attorney. And law and order is alive and well in the office of law enforcement is being gutted and prosecutors are declining to prosecute crimes and offering lower sentences. And the elimination of bail is creating a revolving door criminal justice system at all levels, no matter how small the community is. And on top of all of that, Cuomo's radical parole board is letting go cop killers, rapists, murderers. They're all going out on parole. If they're eligible, they're getting rubber stamped out the door. Cuomo's parole board has let out 16 cop killers in the last 3 years. Cop killers. They're high candidates for parole. And the legislature's next big push is to create automatic parole for those that are incarcerated over the age of 55, no matter how heinous their crimes are. Geriatric parole, they call it. Like these people that have ended up in prison, deserve a respite after, spending, their time there. This should make your stomach churn. Our government used to care about crime victims, and now they care about the criminals. I mean, it's really tough to get your head around. It's like we live in the twilight zone in this state. And it's all in the name of this insane, dishonest narrative that's in the name of social justice. Who is being affected most by these crime spikes? People of color, people in poverty, people in our urban core. They're at the brunt of this. They're the most susceptible to this rise in crime. People of color don't want less police. They want more police. They want safe streets. They want their kids to be able to go to school without threats of violence. And all New Yorkers want and deserve safe communities, regardless of what political party they belong to. This isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a taxpayer issue. We deserve safe streets. We saw in New York City consistent polling in the Democratic primary for mayor that the #1 issue that primary voting Democrats cared about was crime and safety. It's not the people, it's the out-of-touch elitist politicians who are catering to this radical base. And Andrew Cuomo, forever sticking his finger in the wind in the pursuit of power and glory, he led the charge on this movement. He pushed for bail reform. He signed it into law. He's hailed it as one of his signature achievements. And last summer, he went on his Cuomo TV show he held every day, and he hailed it as he blamed the NYPD for not doing their jobs, and they were the reason that the riots were going on in the streets in New York. I mean, the audacity of this man. And now he thinks that New Yorkers have amnesia, and he wants to step up and be a hero because the political winds have shifted, and now New Yorkers are witnessing the aftermath of these policies that we warned them would backfire in the first place. He's been governor for 3 terms. This is his New York. These are his problems. His policies have caused this. It's his Democratic Party. Andrew Cuomo owns this mess, and he has the blood of every victim in New York State on his hands. But he knows that he still has to contend with his own party in the radical left wing who don't want to admit that there's a crisis. So he does what the Democrats are great at doing. Make guns the scapegoat. It's, of course, the guns that are causing all of the crime. This isn't about gun laws. New York has thousands of gun laws on the books, the toughest gun laws. New York and Chicago have the strictest gun laws in the nation. What else do they have in common? Radical liberal leadership who refuse to support law enforcement officers, and they refuse to enforce the laws that are on the books. The criminals that are shooting up toddlers in streets between Times Square and Buffalo, where we just had a 3-year-old little boy die after he was shot over the weekend. You think these criminals care about more laws being on the books? These criminals don't give a rat's ass about laws. They're willing to take someone's life in cold blood. What does taking and making more restrictions on law-abiding gun owners going to do other than take hands out of law-abiding gun owners? The black market will always exist. This crime will be there. They need to enforce the laws that are on the books, and maybe we could have safe streets again. There have been no loosening of gun laws that have led to these crime spikes, but there have been changes in policing in the criminal justice system. The vast majority of crimes committed with guns are guns that have been obtained illegally against laws that are already on the books. No law is going to wipe out this black market for criminals who want to obtain stolen weapons. But tough policing and tough sentencing and policies like stop and question and frisk have been proven to have gotten illegal guns off the streets and saved lives. The obvious truth is right in front of our faces, but Andrew Cuomo and Democrats are desperate to deceive and cover for their deadly culpability. Deadly culpability is something that Andrew Cuomo knows a lot about these days after 15,000 dead in our nursing homes. He's under fire for that nursing home order and that cover-up that followed, and he's so desperate to distract New Yorkers from the pile of scandals and investigations that hang over his head, from corruption to sexual harassment to his gross mishandling of COVID and trampling on your rights every chance he got. So he's going to do what he does best. He's going to create a smokescreen by using emergency powers. Just as his other ones are going away, he wants more. Rolling out a BS public relations campaign and propaganda campaign and creating the illusion that he's doing something to solve the problem. This is nothing more than lipstick on a pig and him trying to bury his head in the sand to the real problems facing New Yorkers. And the only way we're going to get this scourge of violence under control is to throw out the Democrats who created this nightmare in the first place and elect people and candidates, no matter what party affiliation they might hold, that will stand with the rule of law and stand with our law enforcement officers and support them and give them the tools they need to do their job. We need to respect our law enforcement officers. Every morning they put that uniform on. They kiss their husband or wife goodbye, their kids. They don't know if they're coming home. You hear the tragic things that happen on routine traffic stops, accidents, no matter what it is. They put on that uniform to serve us and to keep all of our families safe. And that's what a civilized society is all about. So we need to respect that rule of law and not defund the police. We need to defend the police. And I don't care who doesn't like that rhetoric. I'll never stop supporting our law enforcement officers, neither will the Republican Party. And this is exactly what we're going to do next November, November 2022, when we elect a Republican governor to liberate this state and to start to restore the comeback of the Empire State once again by making common sense have a comeback once again for the people and the taxpayers of the state of New York. So thank you all for coming here. I want to recognize Majority Leader Brew for being here with us. Thank you so much for all the members of the community that joined us here today, and I'd be happy to take any questions from the media. You know it's trouble when they get the written questions.
Well, they're not mine.
Well, I tell you what, one of the problems you may have in Albany right now is also the support of the Assembly and the Senate. How can you get these things changed before the election comes up in 22?
Well, I will tell you that the issue here is not legislative. The issue is the governor trying to create new emergency powers for himself by this public relations ploy of announcing a state of emergency. State of emergencies used to mean something really serious. It meant, a flood, a natural disaster, a public health emergency. We saw during COVID when a public emergency goes wrong. Yes, we all acknowledge COVID was real, people were losing their lives, we had to have some drastic things happen. But that didn't mean for 18 months that we go from living in a representative democracy where Josh Jensen has the same vote as Carl Hastie from New York City, and they have to pass bills that go to the governor's desk. The governor became a king, and this ploy by this governor to declare a state of emergency on gun violence. Well, how about violence in general? How about crime in general? You have an emergency in New York, but he's burying his head in the sand, but he wants to come out there with some jingoistic terms to make you forget how we got here in the first place. When you strip the powers of district attorneys, when you strip the powers of law enforcement to do their jobs to the point where different police departments make it known, we will no longer enforce the following laws. And then you seem surprised that all hell's broken loose. And one thing leads to another, and that escalates, and next you know we've got the Wild West out in our streets. And great cities like Rochester are paying the price because People from the suburbs probably don't feel quite so safe coming downtown to have dinner or to see a show now that things are going to reopen and we're supposed to be enjoying and living our lives again. So this is about emergency powers, what I'm here to say about today. We need, make no mistake, we need to elect more senators and assembly members and break down the supermajority in the New York State Assembly and Senate. But this governor cannot, under any circumstances, be allowed to crown himself a king once again, just as his past emergency powers are coming to a close.
This is off topic. I didn't
Okay.
know if you were willing to do it up at the podium or if you
Sure,
wanted to.
yeah.
I just wanted to ask about, did you approach former President Trump to headline a fundraising event in August? And what went into that?
President Trump is going to be coming in to do an event for the New York Republican Party on August 5th. I just met with President Trump at Trump Tower about 2 weeks ago and had a great meeting. He's been a tremendous supporter of mine as chairman and is going to continue to help. He will always be a New Yorker in his heart, even though he's a Floridian now. So he was willing to come in and help us raise some funds. So we're looking forward to it.
And Congressman Lee Zeldin, who you guys chose, are you concerned that his appearance with Trump will impact the Republicans' chances?
I haven't talked to Congressman Zeldin about the event. I know he's campaigning for governor all over the state, but we're raising funds for the New York Republican Party. And obviously President Trump is a very, very large draw, and he's someone that's there's a lot of enthusiasm surrounding him coming home to New York to do a fundraiser for us. But let's face it, this is a big ticket for the state Republican Party, and I haven't talked to Congressman Zeldin about it yet, but I'm sure we will be very soon.
And last question, has Trump told you who he was leaning towards as the Republican candidate?
I don't disclose my private conversations with the president. It's out of respect to our relationship, but I will certainly keep that private. But he's very in tune with what's going on in New York. Like I said, he'll always be a New Yorker, even if he's legally a Floridian at this point. He still very much cares about the future of our state and our city. In what's going on in our government, and shares a lot of the same frustration that many of us do. It is what crime and the destruction of our criminal justice system has done to our great cities across the state. So, but it should be a great event.
Real quick, parole reform getting back on topic, has sort of made a revolving door in our, as you were alluding to. Obviously, or at least I would think that even on both sides of the aisle, there should be concern out there. Is there something that the legislators in our state can do to revoke it and put it back into the hands of the judges who are forced to follow this?
Well, there's some dangerous proposals coming down the path. I think first and foremost, the wrong people are ending up on the parole board. And these are people that are bleeding hearts for the incarcerated rather than people that are making straight decisions. Is this the right decision or the wrong? Has this person truly paid their debt to society? Are they a threat going forward? The seriousness of their crimes, have they served enough time? These are serious questions. And you're never going to have someone, and it wouldn't be right for someone to just say, don't let anybody out. But when you see just about everybody getting let out when they're eligible for parole, that is a dangerous scenario going forward, because the concept of geriatric parole I find very offensive. I mean, if somebody commits the crime in their 40s and they happen to turn 55, and we're going to consider that geriatric when Americans, it's not uncommon for Americans to live into their 90s or 100s at this point. You don't know what the situation is. So to have any sort of blanket policy where you're letting people, out the door is very dangerous. Josh Jensen, our assemblyman, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear. When I talk to constituents every day, we want to attack a violent crime. The number one thing that should be on the to-do list is go after the criminals. It's very simple and it's common sense. We shouldn't be trying to find more and more ways to let violent offenders who victimize people, no matter their age, out on the streets and in our neighborhoods even sooner. And that's the problem. And the biggest problem with the governor's declaration of emergency is it allows him to do things on his whim. And it takes out the check and balance of the New York State legislature. And sometimes that might be a good thing on some of the policies that do come out of the Capitol. But it's important because the debate can be heard. If the governor is allowed to do whatever he deems when he wakes up in the morning, it removes the voice of the 20 million people of our state who elected senators, who elected members of the assembly to debate these important issues on the floor and raise the concerns of the people they serve. The most important aspect of government is the protection of the citizenry, and in New York State, we are failing at that job description. We need to make sure we're debating these issues on the floor of our legislative body and that we're representing our constituents. I'm hearing from people of all ages and all communities, from law enforcement, saying that our streets are more dangerous today than they have been in recent memory. And the only thing that they can point to is the policies that New York State has in place that has allowed criminals to flourish at the expense of law-abiding citizens. So we have to have the debate. It shouldn't be in the dark, it shouldn't be at one man's whim, but it should be amongst the people who serve the public for the public's sake.
Thank you, Sylvia. And I think also, people need to call their senators, Baruch and Cooney. They're brand new senators. They need to be held accountable on this too. I mean, when you've got something as dangerous as the geriatric parole bill being considered, you know, legislature's out of session now, so I think we're safe at least for a few months. But when they go back in January, one, ask them, what are you doing to impeach a governor? Because that's still hanging out there. But second, this policies like this that make cities like Rochester less safe, in all of us, in every community less safe. People need to know where they stand on those issues. And I hope that you and the media continue to shine a bright light on what they do, not when they're here at home in Rochester, but what bills are they voting for when they're there. A lot of these bills come up in the middle of the night. They get jammed into the budget so that it's, oh, I got you all this money. Meanwhile, you find out that they've stripped the concept of cashless bail. I mean, the destruction of our criminal justice system was in budget bills. I mean, this is Banana Republic stuff that's happened in New York, and we have to all wake up and educate the public as to what's going on in this great state. And we are on a mission to save New York, to save our state. And common sense has got to make a comeback. Any other questions?
Yeah, so you said that the need for gun control laws is sort of a scapegoat for this violence problem, but illegal guns proves to be responsible for the violence in our community against community members and also police officers. So you did kind of speak about like what needs to be done to crack down on that.
The guns
Right.
have been illegal the whole way. I mean, they're illegal stolen weapons, probably no serial. I mean, all things that if the police were allowed to actually go enforce the laws, that these people would be put away for a long time. That are committing crimes or trafficking these weapons, putting them in the hands of kids. I mean, these are illegal weapons in probably almost universally. But you know, I watched Mayor Brown in Buffalo the other day, you know, railing against the violence that we're seeing in our city, where I live. And he said, this is not going to get solved by midnight basketball. This is not going to get solved, you know, by more laws. This is you have to let the cops do their job, and they have been stripped of that ability. And you know, when you talk about defunding them, when you attack the institution of policing, it's pretty clear what's going to ultimately happen.
So what, in your opinion, what does need to be done at a legislative level to be able to kind of combat this violence?
I think we need to ramp up policing. We need more funds for the police. We need to hire more cops and make our streets safe. We need to take our streets back and not just, I mean, right now, you're in a situation where you're essentially saying, I guess let it burn and walk away and not enforce the laws that are on the books. When criminals know, when people that want to commit criminal behavior understand that you're not going to enforce laws X through Z, they're going to go commit those with reckless abandon. I mean, you know, I walk around the streets in the city of New York. It's now widely known that there'll be no one stopped for, you know, marijuana use in public. You walk around the city and you constantly smell a cloud of marijuana smoke because they know that there'll be no enforcement of that law pending all the legalization that's come forward. So you have the psychological thing, when you know there's no consequences, and you're not gonna spend a night in jail for your crime, there's gonna be escalation. And that has continued on and on. We were sounding these alarm bells 2 years ago, right before COVID. We were telling everyone what was gonna happen, and now we're here, and it's happened. It's not the pandemic. COVID-19 is not the reason that there's more shootings in every city in New York State. That is not the reason. The reason is that we have an escalation in crime because law enforcement has been stripped of their abilities. They've been stripped of their duties in many cases. And they've been cheated out of support by elected leaders that should support them as a valued institution. So we need more cops, we need more funding for police, and we need to take our streets back, period.
Chairman Langworthy, I'd just like to say that thank you for coming here, and my observation is that the two most progressive liberal states in the nation, California and New York, people are voting with their feet, okay?
Sure.
And it's not only public safety, it's taxes, it's everything that's been created by the Democratic Party in this state, as well as California, that people have said we've had enough, okay? We as family members, as representatives of our community, it's desperation, okay, on our parts to see how the state is ever going to be turned around again. You know, the gun violence, the public safety, right there, I agree it is 100% important, something that's got to be addressed immediately, okay? But if you were to ask the governor, well, what is your explanation on why all of your people are leaving your state? Would he say, well, it's because of the weather, or they just don't understand how good that my state is? I mean, the proof is out there, Chairman Langworthy.
It's crystal clear that, and that's why this 2022 election is kind of like a last stand. It's got that feel to it. We have to win this election. We have no choice, because this state is gone if they get 4 more years of totalitarian democratic control of the state. There needs to be balance. And, you know, I pray every day that there will be, you know, people of all party affiliations that will see that we have to create balance and start respecting the hardworking women and men that are paying the bills in this state, that have been taxed so hard that they have to make realistic choices in life. I mean, there's people in my own life that I never thought would leave that are now having serious discussion. I'm sure you all do too. You have, you know, it's a dinner table discussion going on all over New York, whether someone's close to retirement or they're just at their breaking point and say, you know, I don't want to uproot the kids. We got a good life here. We enjoy, you know, especially our upstate lifestyle, but I can't take it anymore. And when you have a governor threatening a state of emergency and you've got things that are lingering in the background, like gun confiscation from law-abiding people, micro-stamping, you know, shutting down gun shops, you know, that I'm not a conspiratorial guy by nature. I'm a pretty practical person. But this is, you know, using a terrible situation to gain more power. That's what COVID was for all of us. We saw it firsthand. You know, the abuse of everyday New Yorkers, our lives, our businesses, our futures, that was done. And, you know, the problem is not enough people fought back. And when you did, we slowly but surely got our rights back. And then when the governor got outed for being a crook into covering up, you know, because his deadly nursing home order, our rights started to come back in a record clip. Because he was outed as a tyrant and a bully, and we've always known what he is, and now it's on full display for everybody. Everybody knows who he is now. And we're not gonna stand back quietly while he thinks he's gonna declare a state of emergency and try to impose his will and grow his power unconstitutionally. So there's a lot here to come. He's been real shy on details as to what his real plans are. If it's anything more than just a stupid press conference like he had, people are going to use every means necessary, you know, the courts, legislation, to fight this fight. So I thank everybody for coming, and looking forward to a great day here in Rochester.
Thank you.